almost like speed dating. Like you get 15 minutes, but for instance, a piece is like you get 6 months. The saxophone piece you get 2 months. If you need a little bit more time, you'll get 2 more weeks, but that's it. This wind quintet, you get X amount of months.
Okay.
No more. But
I like that. Anyway, this is Tyson Davis over here, composer from. He's doing his undergraduate at Juilliard, right?
I am.
Yeah,
I am.
and it's pretty wild because you're a current Juilliard student, but I graduated way back in 2016, which feels like a long time, but it's really not that long. It's only like 6 years.
Yeah, it doesn't even feel like that.
Yeah, well, with the pandemic and everything, that feels
time has shifted.
But this is the first time we've actually met in person.
Yeah.
So first time having a guest on that I've never met. So this is really exciting for me. So yeah, I mean, actually for me, we're talking about going to the gym. I think that it helps a lot with with just day-to-day life because I've been telling some people lately, if you don't have the strong mental and physical fortitude, all this other stuff doesn't matter.
Well, it makes it worse when our field is so like we sit in a chair for X amount of hours and just hunched over at whether it's you're writing by hand or whatever. So that's like against our like biology.
You saying that makes me want to stand
exactly
straight.
Yeah, it's like it makes me want to adjust myself. But yeah, it's just like it feels like wrong, and then like you gradually you're no better than a 9-to-5-er as far as your body's health. So I think
worse even.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes the composer would be working till way late at night, then they're teaching during the day and then coming home and working on their composing, and it's even worse than 9-to-5 job in a way.
Yeah, and like I've noticed too, like sitting down, like I'll try like to avoid sitting down lately as much as possible. I don't have a standing desk like those people. Have you seen like those standing desks like people buy for their offices?
Yeah, I've seen them.
That doesn't seem right. That seems weird. But like I'll try to not sit on the subway like on my commute to school, or like I'll try to stand while I'm on the bus, or like something like that. Those little things I think help with just like your whole body's whole thing.
I mean, for me, I've found that working out, especially like I work out 3 times a week. I used to work out 5-6 times a week last year, but I felt that actually I wasn't seeing the progress that I thought I would be seeing doing that for that long. And I think the main reason was I was putting too much mental capacity into that. But in reality, you just need to put the right amount, not too much. Don't overdo it. And then it made me hungry. And then I was eating, and then that negated everything.
Well, I mean, it's like, because the thing, especially like with weightlifting, and that has been like a big thing with me lately, like weightlifting, cardio. It's like you burn so many calories, like just like lifting weights. And then on top of that, if you do cardio after, you're gonna be extremely exhausted.
Well, especially the cardio.
And you deplete like everything that was in your body as far as like energy.
But when you're at Juilliard, like during the day, like what in terms of the food, what do you end up having to do? Because at least I remember the food at Juilliard when I was there. I mean, they had some healthy options, I guess, but those weren't. You wanted to choose the pizza and the hamburgers and that kind of stuff. When you see those two things next to each other, you don't want to choose the healthy option.
No, not at all. And fortunately, I'm a commuter now. I live in Washington Heights, on 185th with my mom. So my mom cooks kind of unhealthy, so I kind of have to fight with her sometimes to stop cooking like that. But the food is pretty the same at school. It's pretty still relatively unhealthy. But they actually introduced this thing called an oatmeal bar, which the students fought for.
It's a candy bar.
It's free in the morning. It's right after the security desk, right behind the security desk. You get an oatmeal bar.
When you say oatmeal, you mean oatmeal bar, like a candy bar?
No, like oatmeal, but just sitting on a table.
But on a bar, okay.
Sitting on the table, and they have fruit with it, and granola and brown sugar. Which that's been helpful actually Wednesday mornings before ear training, because me and we had to sing like a Lassus motet yesterday.
Yeah.
Real casual, soprano clef and alto clef. So ear training's at 11 o'clock, and so we normally like get together like an hour and a half before class to try to like do this, because Tuesday was election day, so we didn't have class.
Yeah.
So we had to do that, but I got oatmeal while I was there, because I didn't have time to eat breakfast, because I had to wake up at like 9, and like between that and like daylight savings time right now.
Right.
Yeah. So my sleep schedule has been a little.
So they just offer that? Like you go past the security and they just have that?
Free.
And how long is it out there in the morning?
It's like from 8 to like 10:30. They fought for it. They fought for like a year. The student like.
Well, why? Why can't they just go to the cafeteria?
Well, because this is free. That's the thing.
Oh, they just want something free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So
a $3 oatmeal
Well,
bowl.
$5.
I guess in New York, in Manhattan, it's $5.
Juilliard.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. They didn't have that when I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually in the dorms for. I was a master's student in the dorms, which is weird. I was with a bunch of undergrads. And we had to be on the meal plan.
Yeah.
So for a year, I was there for a year and a half. I was on the meal plan, and I was basically forced to eat that food. And you put the two options. You're not going to choose the healthy option, especially when you're tired and stressed.
Absolutely not.
You're not going to choose it. You have to, So like here, because I got the kitchen, I actually meal prep everything. So like on Sunday, I'm like half the day I'm just in the kitchen cooking.
Great.
And like all my meals are in the freezer. So
perfect.
It's
it
like
really is, yeah.
I don't have a choice. That's the food I'm eating. Yeah. And that's it. And, it takes that, like what I was saying before about mental, putting that mental space for working out. It's the same thing with food, If you put too much mental space into the food, it will consume you.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you just focus on putting that food in a small amount of time, like I've been doing this only for like the last 6 weeks, but it's helped me because I don't think about food anymore. Like it's not like a concern. I just like, okay, I go in the freezer, I get my food, I microwave it, and that's it. And
beautiful.
So it helps with everything else, because then I'm not so obsessed with it. Because it could be easy to get obsessive.
It really can. And it's like it takes so much energy. I mean, everything. I mean, as an artist or as any person working, I mean, your work, does take a lot out of you, and so like adding extra things that aren't really necessary to be like harassing your mind. I mean, it's like lethal.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's something important to talk about, because I never hear about any, especially eating, that part. I hear about people, wanting to, go to therapy for their mental health and even working out, but I never hear about the eating part of it. Every time I go to a concert, and they have food, or they have hors d'oeuvres, or I'm at a donor event or something, and they have all this food out there. I mean, that's my Achilles heel. It's free food, and that happens a lot in our field, And it's just a killer, So anyway, this is just something I wanted to. Since you brought it up, I wanted to get it off my chest.
I agree. It's definitely something weird that a lot of people don't think about, or enough about.
Yeah. So what year are you now at Juilliard?
I'm a senior now.
Oh, crap.
I'm a senior.
So you're almost done.
I am, but I'm a bit sadistic because I'm coming back. I'm trying. Well, my teacher wants me to be back with him. I want to be back with him. I really do, Dr. Beezer, Dr. Beezer. But I'm his tutelage has been so extremely effective, I think, over the last 4 years, that I don't think I have something so great that I don't want to take the chance and not have something like that again. So
you were with him for all 4
years.
All 4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that's very, at no other school, although especially in the US, do I see this model where people are with the same teacher.
Yeah.
So I'm not used to that. After I was with John Corleano for 2 years, I think we both felt like that was enough. But it's interesting because with Beezer, I never hear that. I hear the opposite, that they want to stay with him longer.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it might just go to show how oddly variant he is as a teacher. But a lot of people do switch out of studios. That is much more of a lenient thing than it used to be in the 90s and the 80s. So you can dance around with that. And they don't have a problem with you changing. I just really don't want to. I really have like a really great relationship with him, musically and like personally. So I don't.
Yeah. Sometimes personally is even more important.
It really is.
Like I have a very personal relationship with one of my teachers from USC, Bruce Broughton. But I mean our styles couldn't be any different.
Same with Beezer. Yeah.
But he writes like more. Bruce writes like very tonal film, cinematic. Even when he was writing for concert music, it's very cinematic and he's literally using functional harmony. But I don't. Mine music is like microtonal and using Arabic maqam and all this stuff. And but when we get together, it's like it doesn't matter any of that stuff.
Exactly.
We know the language of music. And life in general. So. Yeah, it's nice when you find someone like that.
I mean, we talk about. I remember, and we still do occasionally, but like my freshman and like sophomore year, we like constantly talked about like Seinfeld and like Larry David because we just like we both loved those shows.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's just as good for him as it is for you. That's something I've discovered lately, being a teacher, like a private composition teacher. Also, it's like, wow, this session is just as good as it is for the student. You know, and after I'm done, it makes me want to be creative.
Yeah, it's extremely encouraging. I think for both sides. I think I mean, just to see what he does, to see how his career is going, for instance, and just I don't know, it just has a beautiful sort of vibe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, do you see yourself, so you're going to do the master's degree. Yeah. Do you see yourself going on to do a doctorate?
I think so. And, I think when I was like a few years ago, before I had Beezer, I think I was really against the concept of teaching. I was really I didn't like the idea, but I think a great teacher can really inspire you to like become more than you think you should or can be. I think, and I think I would want to pursue, teaching, on the side, obviously, because of how he like taught me,
Right.
I think,
That's interesting.
I think, that model, I want to encourage other people, to have these sort of elements, in their own work, whether, it's not about aesthetic or style, but just about like raw structure and development of your idea in whatever way you might see it. I think that's really important for people.
Yeah. How much of the lesson do you think is focused on like this kind of interpersonal relationship versus actually like looking at the music? Or does it vary from lesson to lesson?
It sometimes varies from lesson to lesson, I would say. Sometimes we don't even look at the music. Sometimes we'll just talk about like what I'm trying to do within it.
Yeah.
And why it's not working or how it's working. I think it's really important too. For instance, about a month and a half ago, I was really stuck in a section of my quartet. And we talked about the things that I heard in my mind, the things I wanted to hear. And we talked a lot about graphic scores and specifically like how I could, because I'm a very visual person when it comes to music. A lot of my pieces are based on pieces of artwork. And he knows that the string quartet is based on a big painting at the MoMA.
And your big orchestral piece in the Berlin Wall.
Yeah. Almost every piece of mine is based off of a painting somehow, some random abstract painting. But so he encouraged me to do like a timeline of like a graphic timeline. 30-second intervals. One line, 30 seconds, another 30 seconds, another 30 seconds, like a line, and then draw sort of like what I heard, like physically, like to see visually what I saw, what I heard orally, or wanted to hear orally, and how these sort of whether it was an intense, extremely sharp line, or it was these little tiny pointillistic dots, how they could sort of merge into one another. And it was weird because I still have that graphic sketch, and I can send it to you. But the music literally is. Yeah,
I definitely want to put it up while we're talking. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it literally is that. And it took.
So you stuck with it. You didn't veer off, because I always end up doing this kind of thing where I'm like veering off from what I drew.
I didn't veer off, but I think, and this is another thing, I took more time. I think in the last year, like I think I've understood. It sounds existential, but I think I've understood time a little bit more realistically. Like I used to think. I feel like when I was like a sophomore, a junior, and a freshman, and well before that, I felt like, for instance, 10 seconds was, a long amount of time.
Eternity.
Yeah, exactly. And I would have an entire, world in 10 seconds.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. So, that whether it's me even, for instance, looking at like the second hand on the clock while I'm thinking about what I'm writing, or I'm like looking at that little slot of 30 seconds per, system, for instance, in that graphic sketch, to sort of stretch out things and manipulate things.
Have you ever done something where the graphic score is the score?
I haven't done that. I mean, of course I know about that, but I haven't done that, no. Just because I think I'm very extremely into manipulating pitches myself. Yeah. Yeah. And like, so, I mean, I think that would be interesting for me to explore eventually, I think that's important. But I think I am very interested in the manipulation and like control of like my pitches, you know what I mean? And how
Yeah, that's something that, at Columbia, where a lot of people are very into doing these kind of graphic scores and giving more agency to the performer, which is something that I never really thought about much before going to Columbia, because at Juilliard, it's the opposite, what you're saying, this idea of control, this idea of the composer being the, like this very Wagnerian sense of the controlling everything. Yeah. But there is a place for that, but I'm learning more and more, there's also a place for the performer, because it depends on the performer. This is true. Many of the performers at Juilliard they want to know, what am I supposed to do? Yeah. What am I supposed to do? What do you mean? And they don't want to have, I'm speaking very generally, obviously, but they don't want to necessarily have an opinion of their own. That's
the difficult thing when it comes to, conservatories and I think our field in general when it comes to, classical music. Classical music post, 1870, where people became so obsessed with what was already there, and even like post 1900, after Mahler, for instance, and Toscanini would stopped making, orchestrational changes to a Beethoven symphony. People have gotten so extremely bogged down with that, and I think about that. I do, but I don't know. I think to an extent, I think I am still in that vein of thought.
I mean, it's very centristic to conservatories.
Extremely.
I think, because at USC, USC is kind of a hybrid conservatory university, research university, and then Columbia is definitely more research orientated. But I feel like over there, they want to have more of a democratic sense of what it is to create, which is interesting. And I'm 6 years in and I'm still not fully bought into it yet. All my pieces still are very, like what you're saying, controlled and very specific. But I've found myself a few times recently saying, I actually don't really care how you play this. Just play it how you feel like you should be, and surprise me. I don't want to tell you how to do it, And then the players are like, really? You sure? Well, yeah, go ahead. The worst thing that I'm going to say is I don't like it. Yeah. What's going to be worse than that?
I know what you mean.
Nothing, really.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that way. And I think, jazz, for instance, has, I listen to literally everything. Like, my gym playlist is like 90s punk and like the Beastie Boys. But like at the same time, it's like, I think jazz, for instance, like that sort of controlled spontaneity, for instance, on a theme. It's almost like, in a sense, in a very classical minded way, it's sort of variations on a theme, for instance. A Coltrane solo. But it's interesting, and I think I'm going to look more into that and read more into that and think more about it. But how a solo, for a John Coltrane solo or Miles Davis solo can elevate a jazz standard in a way that the composer wouldn't have thought about, but in a way that respects it and allows it to be fresh again. I think that's interesting, and I think it's something I like the idea of music in a sense sounding sort of improved, you know, and sort of.
That's a very hard thing to do.
It is, but at the same time, you know, controlled, you know, sort of a amorphous blob of both. Yeah, I found that very interesting. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you know, with that improvisation thing in mind, at Columbia again, I'm mentioning a lot about Columbia, but it's just because I've been there for 6 years and learning such a different way of thinking. You know, that if you want to improvise, you know, although the teachers, they would just say, just have them improvise. You know, don't make it into a controlled thing. Just have them improvise. It's like it's just such a different way of thinking. But they end up doing these pieces that are just like I listen to these pieces, I'm like, my God, you know, it's weird to think this way, but I mean, we're composers, we can't help it. It's just I would never write something like that. It's just like exactly, that's the first thought in my head. I would never ever write something like that, but I'm glad that I heard it.
Yeah,
it's not like I like it or I don't like it. It's that thought that hits my head first.
I know what you mean.
If that makes sense.
I do know what you mean, and I think, you know. I mean, personally, I think things like, you know, improvs, I think should be derivative from something. I think it should, you know, have, you know, a basis. You know, I think, you know, like you can't do variations without a theme. You know what I mean? Or variations without a, a pitch collection or something.
Right.
You know, I think it very much would become very. You know, I like Jackson Pollock. Don't get me wrong, but I think it would become very Jackson Pollock-esque. Right. I think, rather than, you know, I mean, I don't want to get into the details of random abstract artists that I like. Rather than, you know, the painter that I love, Helen Frankenthaler, where it's kind of like, you know, her work is very abstract, but it has this sort of control in a way that isn't overbearing, but it allows like for instance the figures or the concepts to sort of dance and play around with each other, but in a way that's like controlled. You know, it's like kids at a park. You know, you don't want the kids hitting each other. Like, you want them to play with each other, but you don't want them to
that's a good analogy. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
I live in front of a park. You know, and those kids get wild sometimes. Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because when you're not an artist, I would assume you're not a visual artist, but you could still tell these things when you're saying something. And I think an audience could also sense the same thing when you're listening to a piece.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think, I mean, you know, this is all my personal opinion, but I think I feel like there's like two sides of the spectrum where people really think the audiences are really, really stupid. Or people really think the audience members are almost overly educated. You know what I mean?
Well, that could happen, though.
It could be,
I mean, especially the overly educated side. I think
this is true.
Yeah,
and they're both very. They're two sides. They're different sides of the same coin in a sense. But I think to an extent we have to have this sort of understanding that yes, these people are very different from us, but at the same time, you know, they're not stupid. You know what I mean? But they're also not like, hopefully on both sides, hopefully they're not overly overly intellectualizing, you know, a concept.
Yeah.
I think, at least with my music, I don't think I would want that. I think I would want, you know, a person to be able to, like you said, understand that and hear that this music, yes, has a certain freeness to it, but at the same time, the composer is curating certain times where things happen, and it's not kids at the playground hitting each other.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really write music that way. It will drive you crazy. Like thinking about like, oh, you know, you just have to write what hits you the most. I mean, it's a cliche. I mean, everybody says that, but it's like I have some pieces where I'm like I don't know if it's gonna hit at all, but then it hits, and then there's some pieces I have where I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing I ever wrote, and then I play it and it's like very flat response. I'm like, so you can't really think of it that way. It'll drive you crazy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. At least in my very limited experience on this earth.
Yeah.
But I don't think it changes the older you get. I think composers still have this kind of insecurity every time they sit down and write a piece. I don't think it ever goes away. At least in my lessons with John, it didn't seem like the insecurity ever went away. Every time there's a new piece, and actually that's kind of healthy in a way, to have a little bit of that doubt, a little self-doubt. I think it's healthy actually.
Yeah.
To think that you're the greatest.
Yeah, that's absurd. Yeah.
This Wagnerian sense
ridiculous.
of composing, and and I think it's just a hard way to be human.
Yeah, it's not human. It's not. Truly, it's not. But yeah, it's sort of alien to us.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, again, first time ever meeting. So it's a blank slate with me. I know your music.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of it, and I mean, I wouldn't invite you over if I didn't think I loved the music. But you were telling me earlier you grew up in North Carolina.
I did.
Right.
I did.
And this is going to be a very formal question, but since I don't know you, I need to ask what made you want to be a composer in the first place?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, that's the standard question. But I mean, there's so many things for me.
Sorry for the standard question.
No, it's okay. There's so
I had never asked this question, but I have to ask it to him because I don't know him.
It's okay. I mean, I think I was extremely interested in from an extremely young age, like 5 and 6. Just I think how a lot of kids are, obviously, but I think almost obsessively for me, just drawing. And trying to create things out of drawings. I for instance, my art teachers in elementary school submitted a few of my paintings, and I won a few county fair prizes in my paintings when I was young. But then I started writing plays. When I was 7.
Plays?
Yeah, just
well,
plays.
That's random. That's
random.
Big...
Yeah, and I can't remember what they were about, but they were very elaborate. 70, 90 pages of
original plays?
Yeah,
from original stories, not adapted from a book or an original
adapted from historical events, for instance. That I knew about.
Yeah, I mean that's unusual. I've never heard of a kid writing plays.
8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. 7 even, So I was really interested in those things, and I was also interested in the piano. This was around the time that I begged my mom to teach me how to play piano because she grew up playing piano, not professionally, but I was just interested in just playing pieces, And then I just started 7 and 8 and 9 just started improvising on the pieces I was learning. I had a piano teacher. I got a piano teacher from 9 to 12. But I noticed, and it was very helpful for me, but we didn't really focus that much on pieces. I would be always I would always have a small piece I was learning.
Yeah.
But for the most part it was theory. Because I explained to her, I told her my interest in writing music. And I was writing, and I showed her some of that music that I was writing, which was very,
So you wanted to learn piano to compose music.
Basically.
I mean, I was very similar.
Yeah. So she gave me these theory and musicianship books, and we did those every lesson. The basics, the circles of fifths, and etc. Things, but I gradually got more and more interested in it. I joined my middle school orchestra, playing cello, and eventually double bass for a little bit. But that gave me an entrance into how to write for strings, and that's also kind of to an extent how I learned how I initially wanted to join the orchestra just to write for strings. So I was in that orchestra, and I started.
But the piano you didn't keep up after 12. You
I didn't. I didn't. I stopped, but I used it as a tool, and that's how it is today. I have a piano in my house, but I use it, as my, Yeah,
I mean, a lot of composers feel like they get insecure if they can't play the piano, but I feel like it's the opposite. If you play the piano really well, actually, it's a limiting factor in a way, because then you only write pianistic stuff, and you can kind of tell also.
You can definitely tell. You can definitely tell when someone's a very well-trained pianist.
But they
yeah.
tend to write music a little faster, I think.
They do.
If they can hunker out the notes.
This is true. I have to write a big piano piece actually, like a 12,
That's
like
scary
a 20 minute
20-minute piece.
20-minute piano piece.
You know the soloist?
Yeah, Jonathan Biss.
Jonathan
Biss. It's
Biss.
a commission from him. He's like pairing it with the late Schubert sonatas. Real casual.
This guy, I don't know. Before we turned the cameras on, he's telling me all these different pieces he's writing. I'm like, I don't know why you're here. There's the keyboard right there. You can get to work.
I am going to get back to work after I leave here, though. So, but yeah, so I have to write, that piece. So that's going to be interesting because I haven't written for piano, like in like a big context since like high school when I wrote like a small piano sonata for like my friend, like one of my really close friends, in like junior year. But yeah, anyway, back to that.
But while you're in high school, so you're playing cello, you're playing double bass in high school as well.
Middle school. I stopped once I got to the North Carolina School of the Arts.
Okay, yeah. And that North Carolina School of the Arts. What ages do people
It was
attend?
All high school. I went all 4 years of high school.
So like ninth grade,
9th through
12th
12th
grade.
So I got there when I was 14. Graduated when I was 18. I just turned 18. So yeah.
No, I've been learning a lot about that school lately because Jared Miller got the composition job there.
Yeah.
Stephen Banks, the saxophonist, graduated from there. He played my saxophone sonata.
There's a lot of great alumni from
a lot of Juilliard folks over there, and I just didn't know. Mr. Beast is over there in North Carolina.
For some reason, I saw that video actually. Yeah,
they should do a collab. Mr. Beast and North Carolina School of the Arts. Hey, why not?
Just might as well invite me too. It'll be so odd. But that was a great, experience. I obviously knew that it was going to be an amazing experience to go there. But it was extremely rewarding. I was writing I also focused on a lot of orchestra pieces. Like when I was there, I just really loved writing for orchestra. But not all. I only had like one performed there. But I would just write constantly orchestra pieces.
So that college, it's not a college. It's like
it's a college and a high school.
That's what I was confused about.
It's kind of weird, right?
It's both.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
So are you like on the campus with
literally.
So how does that work when 15,
kind of
16-year-olds are mixing with 18?
It's kind of sus. There's the high school dorms.
I'm sure there are stories of things happening though.
There is. There's the high school dorms over here, and then the college rooms way over here. You're not allowed to go in the college dorms. I went in the college dorms when I was in high school. Just to see friends.
But were you in the same classes too? So
no.
These classes were separate.
The classes were separate. Everything was separate, but the orchestra was, all in one.
Oh, so you mixed with the college.
There's
so you would be.
There's a very strong variety of playing,
And is everybody that goes to that college, are they from the area or in the high school, or do they come from?
Some of them come from all over. I think the music department is not as known as, for instance, the film department and the design and production department and the dance department. Those are the really strong, classically really great, come from all over the country. School,
That's so interesting because I don't know if you know this, but I've only lived in LA, New York, and now New Jersey, which it's basically a New York suburb. But to learn about these places is very interesting. I think because it's this stereotype that only, especially the arts, is only happening on the coast. But obviously there are exciting things happening elsewhere.
This is true, and there's a big concert band world in the South that a lot of people know about. There was Steve. I think Steve Mackey lives down there. Unless I'm thinking wrong. Or am I thinking about someone else?
Steve Bryant.
Okay. Yeah, he lives in Greensboro. I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Because John Mackey lives in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Steve Bryant.
Steve Bryant. Yeah,
he lives.
I'm not sure where he lives. I don't know him.
I'm almost positive he lives in Greensboro or Durham. And I was from Raleigh. I lived in Raleigh.
So it is possible to make it as make a career, some living as a composer, not having to be in New York or LA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or Chicago, or it's not like it's not a requirement.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Just happens to be.
This happens to
in
be
New York
yeah,
now.
This is
but,
true. Yeah.
But it's not like a requirement that you stay here. Also,
this is true. Not at all. I mean, I do love it here. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really want to leave, but yeah. So I mean, there was also a really big like the school played a lot of new music as far as band music. There was a lot of new band music, like concert band, which I think is relatively common in the South. I think there's a big concert band world that a lot of people don't really know about, I think, in the North. But yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. I studied with Lawrence Dillon there, and he was a Juilliard alum. He studied with Persichetti. And Persichetti, I became obsessed with Persichetti after I finished that big orchestra piece in 2019 for the National Youth Orchestra. When I started focusing on writing those tableaus, because he has a series like that called The Parables. It's kind of like, they're very...
Persichetti. Does he have one for double bass?
He does.
I think I heard that
he
one.
Does.
Yeah, that's
he
the
does.
one I know.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Some of them are for chamber ensemble too, but most of them are for solo. But that really inspired me to pursue writing for the solo line, because I think I was really interested in principles, very very essential principles, I think, of music, but I didn't know how to do them. I think that that was the main thing with me and Dr. Beezer for the first couple of years, how I can do the things how I can do the things I wanted to do that were just essential to music, such as motivic development, developing variation, having an extreme understanding of form and structure within music.
And the way you're doing that is through the solo pieces.
That's initially how I did it, because I wanted something as simple as possible. I wanted a solo instrument that I could expand upon its and manipulate its timbral varieties, and its color, and not necessarily push the boundaries of the instrument, but to push the expressive boundaries of the instrument.
Yeah.
But because I think I was just distracted. It's like a kid in a candy store with an orchestra.
Of course, If you have it there, you want to use it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And you're like this. Yeah, you're like the Willy Wonka character with all these sounds and colors, but then you forget that about all the other things that make music
exactly.
form, the development, things
the
like
essential things of music. And I think that's kind of truly how I feel about that orchestra piece that I wrote for the National Youth Orchestra. Frankly, I think it was, I think there were some cool parts, but I think for the most part, I was definitely a kid in a candy store with that piece.
Well, every young composer has their piece. I have a piece like that, actually. When I heard your piece, this reminds me of a piece I wrote when I was 21. It's a piece called Maelstrom. It's like this kind of guns blazing, loud, and as much counterpoint as possible, and percussion, and this. You have to do. You need to be excited about writing a piece. That's the enthusiasm is the most important part.
Definitely, but I think
of being a composer.
Absolutely.
Before all the other stuff about sitting there and figuring out proportions, and
definitely.
If you don't have the enthusiasm,
then it's not worth it.
Because we're sitting in a room for how many hours doing? You need to be enthusiastic. But your idea of doing the solo, I'm very envious, because I just started doing a solo project myself. But I'm 30. I started a year ago. And you have how many do you have now?
12.
12. God.
Of that
I have
series.
4.
It's okay.
But it's so smart, because I tell young composers this all the time, and they have this mindset too that I want to write for a big ensemble, I want to write for string quartet, but in reality, writing for a solo voice, and especially a person that you're going to learn so much from that instrument that you would never have learned if you wrote for orchestra from the get-go.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I started this because a few friends asked for these pieces. My friend Angela, that plays oboe, at school. My friend Dana at Carnegie Mellon. She's at Cincinnati now. Wanted the flute tableau. But so it was. I think it was something extremely needed, because I feel like people, composers, which is of course understandable, we could get stuck in that mentality of, that sort of bombastic, orchestra thing. I think there are composers that do get stuck like that, and get stuck like that, potentially for the majority of their career. They get stuck in that sort of mentality, and I think it has the potential to be quite destructive. I think for not necessarily your creativity, but your craftsmanship. I think to an extent.
Yeah, and you can't help but doing some of the same things over and over again that have worked in the past. When you have a solo piece, you can't really get away with doing the same. Like if you're writing another flute piece, you can't really get away with doing the same stuff in your first flute piece. Like Sharino has this huge set of flute pieces, and they're all so different from each other.
Yeah. I know that album.
So it's like, and you can definitely apply those things to an orchestral flute section.
This is true.
So you really figure out what your sound is on the flute or whatever, and then okay, great, I have my flute, toolkit. All right, great. When I'm writing an orchestra piece, okay, there's not everything, but I open the toolbox. What wrench am I going to pull out?
It's perfect
for this. It's great, and you did it so young. Now you have this toolbox of things that you can pull from, and no one's going to call the police if you do that either. If you pull from this piece, pull from that piece, and put it into. I think this is the way composers have been working before the 21st or even 20th century, but. I feel like there's a shift now to every piece has to be completely different, and I'm not using any ideas from any previous work. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's really bizarre. I haven't finished the quartet. It's the quartet because the deadline. The premiere,
the string quartet.
The string quartet.
Okay.
Yeah, the string quartet. The quartet is just having not any issues or anything, but they're just, having some personal things. So they had to shift the premiere date back a couple months, but it'll be performed in Houston in the fall. But it's
which string quartet is this?
The Juilliard string quartet.
Oh, the Juilliard string quartet.
Yeah,
okay, of course.
Real casual. Right?
Of course,
real
the Juilliard
casual.
string quartet. Oh, yeah. I'm so. How could I have not known?
Yeah.
So let's go over the hit list then of what pieces you're working on. Okay. So the piano, the 20-minute piano sonata. Is it a sonata? Are you calling it a sonata? Sonata. Okay.
Charles. Charles Warren
multiple...
has piano sonatas, but.
Right. But is it going to be in multiple movements, you think?
That's what I'm thinking. But for me, we can talk about that too. But for me,
I think the Liszt B minor sonata is in one movement, I believe, right?
I think.
It's a huge piece.
For me, just like my quartet also, the movements are are taka. Because I put like these because I took Lazarus counterpoint class last year.
Of course.
So, fugal episodes. I put an episode, not a fugal episode, but I put episodes between the movements to connect them. Yeah. Like how a fugue episodes connects one transition to another. So it's it has that sort of gestalt. It's not stop and start between movements. So I've been very interested in that over the last year and a half. So so it will be multiple movements, probably the piano piece, but probably with little episodes in between.
And then then you have the string quartet for the Juilliard string quartet.
Yes. That piece.
How long is that piece?
It's 20 minutes long.
God, wow.
Yeah, I have only 3 minutes left.
Okay, so you're almost done.
Yeah,
okay.
That's
17 minutes, 20-minute piece.
Yeah, it is, and it's being performed in May. They're performing it, a lot, because it's their baby now. It's not mine anymore. But they're performing it in May. Premieres at the Kennedy Center in May. It's really exciting.
In the which theater do you remember?
Terrace.
Oh yes, the smaller theater, right? That's
very
good.
intimate.
That's good. It's better that way.
It is. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Cool.
It'll be performed in Alice Tully too. It was supposed to be performed in Alice Tully in May, but it's probably been shifted back to the fall.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool. So you got those two pieces. And that's enough. I would have just stopped after that, but I'm sure you have other. Or are they less official?
No, they are. Yeah. I have some other
on?
Pieces. There's a piece that I'm going to write after the string quartet gets done in a few weeks, and I'm probably going to start in December. Going to take some time. I want to read this book on microtonality.
Which
that I got.
book?
I cannot remember. I just ordered it. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
I just ordered
it. That's my bread and butter.
Yeah, I know. We need to talk about that. That MIDI keyboard over there. But I'm writing a piece for saxophone and piano next, and it's like a 10-minute piece, short, sweet, to the point. I have a graphic sketch in my mind that I haven't written down yet, but I need to write it down for some of the sections.
Okay.
I'm gonna have a wind quintet after that for this quintet that is based in New York, but the professor is the bassoon professor. The bassoonist is a professor at UNCSA.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
and the saxophone piece is also the professor at UNCSA, Robert Young.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think I saw a recording on YouTube of him playing one of your tableaus.
the saxophone
Robert Young's. I saw that. I think earlier today, actually.
Oh yeah. So I'm writing another piece for him with that, which is great. And then I have a piece that I'm writing for Eighth Blackbird.
Cool. So that's a lot. I mean, do they all have deadlines?
Yeah.
Or do you, and when's the latest? So how far out are you?
I've intentionally did this. They're stretched out until April to May of 2024.
May of 2024. Okay, so when you say it like that, it's not overbearing.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say May of 2023 or something.
No. The piano piece will take like 6 months probably to write.
Yeah.
Hope this string quartet. Took 7 months, but I've been I think it'll be fine.
So how do you balance all this stuff then? I mean, it must be a lot. I've definitely had phases like this. Mm-hmm. I'm not currently in a phase like that where I'm booked that far out.
Yeah.
But I've definitely, especially pre-pandemic, have been in those situations. Uh-huh. But you're in it now. So what's your mindset like? Thinking about these 5-6 pieces.
You go to the gym. You go to school. You do what you have to do. You leave school.
Right.
But for me, fortunately, my classes are all in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So I go to bed like around like 11 or 10. I wake up at like 7:30. Have a cup of coffee, work for a couple hours. Go to school if I need to go to school that day. I don't have to go to school on Thursdays, which is beautiful.
So just one day out of the 5 days.
Yeah, I know. Well,
on the weekends,
it'll be different in Masters. It'll be different.
It's less work.
I'm extremely excited to start my Masters.
Trust me, it's not. Don't ever change the program.
No.
It's a good. Yeah, it has a lot of time to compose.
I'm ecstatic for that, But yeah, so I work for a few hours a day, 4 hours, probably like 4 to 5 hours in the morning, and then on like free days or like if I, sometimes I'll skip class. I will skip class. I am a class skipper.
And you admit it.
I mean, look, this is music here. I don't want to, liberal arts classes at Juilliard. We don't even talk about that. But
I didn't have to do that as a master's student.
Some of them are really cool. But so sometimes that will involve that. But throughout the day, I am thinking about what I just did or what I'm going to do in the morning or what I need to do. Sometimes, for instance, I need to, I revised something, for instance, on Tuesday evening, I had to revise something, but now I need to re-engrave it and I need to put it in the computer because I wrote it down by hand. Everything is written by hand.
So you write by hand too?
Everything is written by hand. The entire thing.
That's good.
The string quartet is 121 pages of sketches.
Jesus Christ.
Outside of the score.
Oh, but you sketch it all out before you put it in the computer?
Yeah, before I put it in the
computer. You never really hear it.
Well, the piano, and sometimes if I need to hear it, I'll put in a few measures. It doesn't take long. But I have my metronome, and that's the god of music right there.
Yeah, you have your John Williams approach.
Yeah. But so that's that, So now I have to go, for instance, do that sort of mindless thing, putting that revision that I just revised into the computer.
So you don't find yourself when you're working on, let's say you're working on the string quartet right now, you don't find yourself thinking about the wind quintet or something?
No, because the thing is, I have it blocked off. It's I guess it's
that's my question. How do you do that? I cannot do that. I'm thinking about the next piece as I'm writing the piece that I'm not even halfway down.
Yeah, well, in a
right
sense,
now.
it's almost like speed dating. Like you get 15 minutes, but for instance, a piece is like you get 6 months. You know, the saxophone piece, you get 2 months. If you need a little bit more time, you'll get 2 more weeks, but that's it. This wind quintet, you get X amount of months. You know,
okay.
no more. But
I like
you
that.
know, yeah.
So it's done. It's done. Like it has to be done.
Exactly.
The 6 months go by.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, and you're able to just like shut that valve and move on.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean that's it's very hard to do.
Yeah, it's like it's in like I'll spend like for instance with this quartet, I only have the 3 minutes to do. You know, I have a little bit of the coda. I have this last variation, you know, because the piece is, you know, continuous variations that morph into each other. That's the title of the piece is Amorphous Figures. You know, that's the painting looks like that, the piece is like that, you know. So yeah, I mean, but I'm gonna spend like a couple of days, you know, honing in on, you know, doing these little, you know, housekeeping things, you know, making sure that beat is short or as long as it needs to be, or, you know.
Right, like the kind of like overall like look at what things can be cleaned up a little bit here, but it's not really composing. It's not like editing. It's like,
exactly.
Like your plays from when you're 9 or something.
Yeah.
It's changing little words here, here and there, putting punctuation points where needed and things like that.
And then there you go.
And then it's done.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you engrave all the parts yourself. And you're doing all that.
I do that. Yeah, I engrave as I go. I do have the score that is that is done on the computer now.
Yeah.
I engrave as I go. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you open this can of worms. So I got to ask, what interests you about microtonality? Because the pieces that I've heard, you haven't really done any of that so far. So why now? I think for me, I think there, you know, and I've thought about this a lot, especially being at the conservatory, you know, the you know, obsession with the 12-note scale. Right. It's so prevalent. But the thing is, you know, I mean, I was a string player, you know, my piano tuner just came like a couple months ago, you know, and I was, you know, listening to him, you know, tune it to 440. But you know, there's so much more. I think, you know, I mean, there is so much more, you know, outside of the Western system, that I think, you know, I would be really limiting myself in a very, you know, terrible way. I think if I didn't look into it, you know, and treat it with the same amount of respect that I do the 12-note system. Are there any pieces that you've heard that made you be like, I gotta? Because of that, I have to. The same way with the Coltrane or any of these other pieces that you.
Grisey, you know, the French spectralist school.
Oh, that's the specific.
Grisey,
I mean,
it's not just them, but you know, Tristan Marat. You know, it's not just them, but you know, hearing them, you know, Ives, you know, other cultures.
Even Ives, it's
crazy. Yeah, it's beautiful, and it, you know, and other cultures as well. You know, I think, you know, we have such an, you know, in our field, we have such an obsession with the 12-note system. It pisses me off. Like, it's almost like disgusting.
Oh yeah, even especially like an ear training class.
Oh my God!
They got to be perfectly in tune according to the piano's 12 notes, which is
you know, and that's an illusion. I mean, you know, the three, you know, if you isolate the tre chord, the 3 strings, you know, those strings are just bending. Their pitches are bending.
Right.
Together they create equal temperament. You know, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And also I read the Henry Cowell New Musical Resources book, which is quite a hard read because he writes in that old English. I don't know if you've read that book.
I haven't read. I mean, Henry Cowell, but
I can loan it to you.
He was exploring all these things in the early 20th century. But his actually Henry Cowell kind of dying off in terms of people that talk about him at least.
I know, right? Yeah.
A little bit,
well, of course, Joel Sachs. You know,
right?
He just
that's
retired.
Like the only one that really.
Yeah, I know, but you know, he's old. You know, but he said Joel Sachs. You know, wrote the book on Henry Cowell, the book on Henry Cowell. And before Joel retired, which I think was like a year ago, because you know the Juilliard New Ensemble isn't a thing anymore. He retired now. It's just Axiom now.
Okay, but that's Jeff Malarski's
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right?
Axiom is Malarski, yeah, and I'm taking conducting class with him actually.
Oh,
right
cool,
now,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. You know he teaches at Columbia too,
Yeah,
right?
I do.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
we email him. His Juilliard email doesn't work.
Oh, so you use the Columbia
We
email?
just email him through that.
Yeah.
But
That's interesting. So they just have Axiom Ensemble?
for
and
the time
that's
being,
the only ensemble playing new music right now?
the orchestra has been playing some I mean, they did the Lutoslawski Concerto for Orchestra. I mean, that's not new, but they did do that. They did do that. Okay,
A piece from the mid
60s. We have to give them credit.
1900s is a new piece.
We have to give them credit. Okay, but okay.
And that piece is very tame for.
It's extremely tame. It's like the most tonal Lutoslawski.
Yeah, it's not his cello concerto or something.
No.
This sounds
the songs.
Like,
But you have to give them credit. But they are, the administration is working, to figure out another ensemble, another new music ensemble as well. But I mean, Axiom is like programming some crazy pieces. They just did Ancient Witches of the Children, Unsuk Chin's song cycle from like 2007, 6.
See, but the thing is, you can't really blame the Juilliard administration or whoever makes the decisions for not playing more adventurous orchestral music, because
not wrong. Yeah.
Most of these Juilliard musicians, when they graduate, they will most probably go to an American orchestra, which will certainly not play the Lutoslawski, Concerto for Orchestra. Mm-hmm. So like training them to play this, if they play an Unsuk Chin piece, or they play they try to play some Sharino piece or anything like this. Like it's actually a disservice to the musicians, because when they move to the Fort Worth Symphony, or they go to Colorado Symphony, or they go to even the New York Philharmonic and the LA Philharmonic are doing things, if they go to the Boston Symphony, they don't play anything that sounds newer than the Lutoslawski. So it kind of, from an educational standpoint, it makes sense why they would. Why the most adventurous thing they'll play is a Solomon or John Adams kind of thing.
Exactly. Or very tame.
Why
music,
would they go the extra step if from an educational perspective? So
I see what you mean. I do.
But then again, I have a lot of friends that they want to make a career in new music, and it's the other way around. It's just like they want to play the hardest thing that they've ever every piece is the hardest thing they've ever played. It's like kind of a masochist mindset. Like all of them have this, but the orchestral players are the opposite. What's the easiest thing that I can just kind of show up and just play without thinking?
It's kind of weird.
It's just amazing how different it is. These are the same people growing up the same way, more or less with the same kind of conservatory training, but they go into these two very varied camps, and two very varied camps, and it's very common that I see these two things.
The dichotomy of that.
Right?
That's almost the name of the game at this point.
Yeah, like Sam Jones, the trumpet player that I'm working with now, on he recorded another one of these sequenza pieces. I mean, he's this way. He at Juilliard, he wanted to play the hardest stuff. He wanted to play as many. He thrived on it.
It's beautiful.
And a lot of players were like this, actually. And it's still like this, right? At Juilliard, you see people like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every day. But hey, I mean, it is the name of the game, I guess.
Yeah.
But Cowell, though. But I read that book, for instance, which is the introduction of spectralist theory. It was talking about subtones and obviously the overtone series and how it can be manipulated for you to use chords out of it. I didn't read it all. It just got so extremely, the language is so weird. It was just like you had to just reread almost every sentence like 4 times in order to understand what he was saying.
That's interesting.
It was really weird. It's like written in like early 1920s. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not something you would recommend to others at this stage, or I mean, there are books. I can send them to you. I can even leave them in the link down in the description below of sources that are much easier to read. Like for example, the Kyle Gahn he has a website where he explains just intonation, I think, in a very simple way, and he shows oral examples. The Ivanovich Nagrodsky book, which I have, it's an amazing. It's very short. It's like 50 pages, and it talks about things like suspensions. Like, what does a suspension mean with 24 notes? It's crazy. You know, like, that's the stuff that I'm excited about.
It is. So it's extremely intriguing. You know, so I'm definitely going to. I mean, my quartet is not. It's so far into being done. I don't think. I don't think the last 3 minutes of my piece should be like, you know, Ben Johnson.
No.
So
don't do that.
That's really random.
Yeah.
So, but I think I'm gonna explore that in the saxophone and piano piece. Oh, soprano saxophone. And,
Soprano saxophone. Okay, that's what I did too. Yeah, the soprano. I mean, they can really play smaller than a quarter tone even. So
exactly.
That's really good. Just the problem is, how do you mix that with the piano? That's
I thought about like that. I thought about manipulating, you know, and working into that manipulation of the dichotomy between that, you know, having the saxophone, you know, obviously playing the. I mean, I don't think I'll have the saxophone play just microtones, but
right.
It obviously playing the majority of them,
Yeah, I mean, then there is a way to use the overtone series from the piano.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not super reliable or audible. Yeah, but you could, if you want that, you know, fifth partial, you could hit it. You know, if you want this seventh partial is a little harder, but you know, the fifth partial is pretty reliable up to the fifth partial with that like kind of minus 14 cent thing, which sounds really beautiful if you. Especially you kind of beat it against the equal tempered note. It's pretty common to do.
It's extraordinary. So I mean, I've been interested in it and curious about it since I heard the Ives quarter tone pieces when I was like for two pianos.
The two pianos. Yeah.
When I was probably sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
But I never really got into it. I remember in high school I used like quarter tone and microtonal inflections, pitch bends, but never truly using the pitch.
Do you know the other piece? There's the piece by John Corigliano, Chiaroscuro. It's
the piano piece, right?
It's two pianos, just like it's the exact same thing. One piano is normal tuning, and the other piano is all the pitches are detuned down a quarter tone.
I have it on my YouTube liked because I as of recently, but I haven't looked. I haven't listened to it.
So that's one to check out, and then the other, I mean, the one to check out is the Ivanovich Nagrodsky 24 Preludes for a 13 note diatonicized chromatic scale. It's a crazy title.
Also, I can't remember his name. Like this, Blackwood, easily Blackwood. I mean, it's from the 60s and 70s, but they're this microtonal 80s. They're really creepy sounding.
And Ben Johnson has a microtonal piano piece as well that Aaron, why am I blanking out? Aaron Calais, I think, plays. I think I butchered his name, but he's out in Los Angeles. But yeah, I mean, it's a Pandora's box. So I mean, what I usually suggest to my students that are interested in it is don't open the box entirely.
Yeah.
Kind of drill a hole in the box.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And kind of look in it.
Yeah.
And see if there's something in there that you like, and use that, and don't worry about opening the whole thing because it will drive you nuts.
Yeah. The book that I'm reading, and I'm gonna find the name for you. But it's it has introductions to essays on just intonation or tuning systems and how they've evolved, but how they once were. I can't remember the name of it right now. It's coming on Friday, so it'll be here tomorrow. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No, I'm excited to hear what you do with that because I mean, especially at Juilliard, it's a place that. There's kind of like a little box I feel like most of the composers end up writing in, and I didn't really realize that, to be honest, until I went to Columbia.
What type of box? I'm just curious. What do you think? What type of box do you think?
Well, it's still kind of in that Persichetti, David Diamond, Elliott Carter kind of mindset, and the pieces all kind of still sound that way, which is fine, but to still sound, but all of them sound that way. I don't see that many exceptions to that. I mean, it could be just me not not knowing, you know. But a lot of it is like that. Whereas when I, you know, a place like, especially like Princeton or Columbia, you know, all the styles are like, I'm just like when I go to a show, I'm like, I literally don't know what I'm gonna hear. It's like the styles are so extremely varied. But for some reason at Juilliard, and that's not just at Juilliard, there are other conservatories. Curtis is a little bit like this too. It's very much focused on like that traditional, you know, especially playing with the 12 notes, playing with harmony in a very tonal. When I say tonal, I mean functionally harmonic way.
I do. Yeah.
That's and not much like, you know, going into improvisation, going into microtonality, going into you know, sounds that like in Europe they're exploring a lot, or even like non-Western sounds, you know, diving deep into it, not just kind of like in an ancillary way, like a lot of the composers were doing in the 60s and the 70s. So it's again, I'm making a super general stereotypical statement, but it's just my observation because I was actually at Juilliard for 2 years, and before that I was somewhere else, and now I'm someplace else. So I can really compare and contrast my experience at all these different places. But that being said, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be steeped in that kind of thing for a while. But
at the same time, it can be very limiting.
But since you've been there for 4 years, you know, and then you have another 2 years, you've been there a long time. So it's easy to kind of get stuck. See,
it can be.
I was there
if
for
you
only
don't
2 years.
Think. You know what I mean? If you don't think, it very much can be limiting. You know,
thinking is important.
It is, people. But you know, that sort of understanding, you know, being aware of the sort of culture that you're around and how you can explore outside of it, or how you can think outside of it, and also it's educating yourself outside of the things that you're being prescribed, you know, in institutions. You know, and I think, you know, for instance, you know, my teachers recommended me read books, you know, that, you know, I would have never have read, you know, if, you know, I just paid attention to things that I read in class or were required to read in class, or, you know, went to music concerts that were outside of Juilliard or outside of the normal realm I would have went to, you know. So I think there's there's a very important thing that, yes, I mean, it's good to have a community. I mean, that's what we want biologically, you know.
Of course, you want to be a part of a tribe, even at
hierarchy
even at a high educational level. You're not different than anybody else.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's like, you know, that can be very, you know, limiting for someone if they, you know, if they fall head over heels with it, you know, which I don't think I have. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. But I mean, there are definitely traits in your music that follow that trait 100%. You know, but the fact that you recognize that and you want to move forward, at least being aware of what's going on. You know, that awareness is actually more important than if you use that stuff. You might be aware and be like, you know, I don't like any of this stuff.
But at least you have an opinion.
At least you know what's going on. And that's part of why I wanted you here, because I want to know what's going on with people, you know, younger than me. Because I could easily become part of that problem too, where I'm getting older and I'm just in my own mind and not knowing what is the next generation thinking. Although I don't know if you're really the next generation. I guess I'm a millennial. What are you? I'm a millennial technically, but what are you?
I guess I'm Gen Z.
Gen Z. So
I was born in 2000. So
because my youngest brother, Jesus Christ, 2000. My God, I was 92. So my youngest brother is 96. So I don't know if he's considered Gen Z.
I feel like Gen Z is like 98. 98.
Yeah. So he's still he still a millennial? Technically, I guess.
That's like a really young millennial. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like a young millennial too, because most millennials are like in their early 40s, I feel like.
Early 40s,
late 30s. Yeah, so I'm kind of in the... But you're definitely in the next Gen Z. Like you grew up totally with computers and...
Completely.
And phones. And like I didn't have a phone until I was 8 years old. No, that's not true. I had a flip phone when I was like 11. I didn't have my iPhone until I was... probably in college.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I didn't use a computer First time I ever touched a computer when I was like 7 or 8.
Wow.
Probably.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm definitely have some like my young childhood. Definitely no computers or anything like this.
Better childhood probably than most Gen Z.
You think so?
Like,
well, that's
you
don't know. You don't know anything different though.
Yeah, this is true. I don't know.
Did you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older brother. We're like 10 years apart, so we don't really. I mean, like when I was 8, he was like 18. So like
that's tough.
we didn't really. We didn't really grow up together.
Yeah, but now he's like 32. So it's getting better.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, like we just didn't. I mean, it's like we didn't grow up that strongly together. But like we like each other. But like
Does he have a family or?
I have 2 nephews. Yeah.
So he's got that to deal with too.
Which is
on top of that.
So it's kind of like okay, yeah. I mean, it's like we're I don't know.
So basically, kind of growing up basically on your own.
It's kind of like we're cousins. It's almost like the vibe of a cousin.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know that they're your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have 2 younger brothers, but they're very close in age. Like I'm 30. The next one's 29.
Yeah.
And the one after that was 96. So that makes him what, like 26?
Yeah.
27?
Yeah. See that's
so it's like
that's
like very tight and very we all live in different places. One is in California. One is right now in Florida. I'm here. So, but we talk all the time on the phone and etc. But it's just a very, very interesting growing up as a composer in a household like that, because the others were not interested at all in music or
it's gotta be
like
really
this.
loud too.
Yeah, no, but that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, it was great to have you here. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you making this part of your day.
I appreciate it.
If you like if you want to see more of these kind of conversations on this channel, please subscribe to the channel. I mean, if you've been here this long, you better subscribe at this point. Yeah. At least like the video if you don't want to subscribe. And anyway,
dislike the video.
You can't dislike the video anymore.
Oh, really?
There's no dislike button anymore. Yeah. You can leave a really nasty comment though.
Yeah. I hate Tyson. Why is he like this? Yeah.
No, nobody's going to write that about, especially maybe about me, but
it's okay.
Not about you. All right, man. No, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, until next time.
Thank you.
All right.